Clearwater Revival and Revisited. Sitting in my dining room with my old pal Max Volume, musician, DJ extraordinaire, a legend around northern Nevada, and he's got an amazing story that I'd like to ask him about, and we'll just get it started right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me over. You know,
great to have you.
Talking about being a kid, and my first record I ever bought was Green River, and I bought it at Builders Emporium on Foothill Boulevard with my own money, and I still have it, you know. And I brought over my songbook because that was like my holy grail of, you know, when I had my first guitar. D-A-G. Most of the Creedence songs are D-A-G.
That's true.
And that was the hardest thing, was changing chords. You can start playing that one chord, but then you got to change to a new one.
Yeah, that's hard. I can't do that. Well, you've sort of morphed into, I would say, hard rock, heavy metal, kind of somewhere in between there.
This album's a little, it's tough. It's a tough one. It's got some, and you know, I started out 10 years ago. We were talking about our kids, and my son, you know, he was down. He grabbed the guitar. We had two guitars. We had an acoustic. We had an electric. He grabbed one of them. He'd be in his bedroom, and he'd come on and say, "Show me how to do this. How do I tune this again? And how many times do I wind it around?" And he just kind of did it himself. And that's the greatest thing, when your kids pick up the music too. But I can remember myself. I don't think I'd ever become a good guitar player if I didn't get grounded so much. But growing up in LA in the 60s, my parents were very protective. My dad, of course, was the chief deputy coroner of Los Angeles County.
Yes. And
the morgue was full of dead guitar players and little girls from Kansas, and he saw the pitfalls of show business.
So, that being the case, did that sort of in a rebellious way get you interested in it?
Well, my parents were musicians and loved music, and at a young age, my mom, every time I turned around, she'd be taking us to the movies, and you know, we'd all be excited. We're going to go to Grauman's, we're going to go to the Pantages, because in Hollywood, you go to the Cinerama Dome, and you get all excited, you go down to Hollywood, and it was a magical place. And half of Hollywood still is nice, and the other half of it is just awful. It's just crap. But Hollywood had this magic, and of course, my grandparents graduated from Hollywood High. And my grandfather was one of the, back then, you know, all the big movie houses were there. Pantages, I mean not Pantages, Paramount and MGM, and they were all there. Warner Brothers, you know. They were all shooting pictures, and they'd be, you know, in school and hear that somebody's got a cast call out and make a couple bucks, and they worked in the movies. My grandfather went on to work in sets, and designing sets and building sets, and then him and another couple guys got in on the neon explosion, and I wish I had some of his old neon signs. But you know, neon's kind of a dairy product. It doesn't last forever. It's very fragile. But we drive up and down Sunset in Hollywood every Tuesday in the Pontiac and check all of Grandpa's signs, and you'd see the signs for the new TV shows and the movies and the books and the records that were coming out. And of course, one of his big clients was Coca-Cola, and they were always coming up with new signs for Coca-Cola. And also, they did the sparklets, the little sparklets water with the little glitter things that they do. So, growing up, I think that my father's concern was there was love-ins going on. I mean, the Doors were, you know, everything was happening in Los Angeles in the latter part of the 60s. Society was, it was, you know, I'm talking to Doug Clifford of Creedence. He was there. I was just a little swatter watching you guys on TV and listening to you on the radio, and there was some magic about, you know, the family going down the road to a fishing trip or a camping trip and having the radio on, and Creedence would come on. Creedence came on like every 90 minutes. There was a time when you guys had, what, like 21 gold records, 21 top 20 hits. I mean, just, they kept coming. And there was just, you know, you couldn't go fishing without Creedence, Johnny Cash, and Roger Miller. My dad loved Roger Miller. But growing up in the 60s with all that going on, and all those drugs, I mean, I got dosed with LSD when I was in 8th grade, and I was just, you know, I was kind of a nerdy kid. And in my high school, and my friend Chris Johnson stayed with me all day, came home late. Mom and Dad never even knew about it.
Wow.
But, yeah, it was good times. I mean, and the music, think about the music is so eternal now.
Yeah. It was a pop renaissance for sure. Now, what I find terribly interesting is that your dad was a coroner. My dad was a machinist, and he would come home and talk about some big piece of metal he was working on, and have his Manhattan. But your dad is dealing with all these grisly, real life and death situations. And you were, when this started, you were about 5 years old when you started realizing what was going on. How was that for you as a kid?
Well, you know, we were just talking a minute ago about here as a community, the Reno Tahoe community, what we've gone through, the IHOP massacre, the plane crash at the air races, the Cohen Ranch fire. And my heroes have always been our first responders, knowing firsthand. I mean, you know, we'd all go fishing together. You know, my dad was friends with everybody in homicide and the fire department and all that. I grew up at a young age having a reverence and a respect for anybody who is an EMT, a fire department guy, no matter where in the echelon. Our police departments or highway patrol. All these people who are our first responders. And when there is, you know, these were my heroes as a kid. And I never really knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I knew that Daddy worked really hard. And here's the thing, is that we all have good days and bad days at work, and the boss is up my business about this thing, and it just, you know, coming home from work is important. Everyone needs to relax and let it go. Take a deep breath. But when you are a fireman, a policeman, a coroner, people die. There's blood. My dad was, he took extra classes when he was going to high school, when he graduated from Glendale High, so that he could graduate early, so he could lie about his age, so he could go join the Navy, because it was World War II.
Oh, yeah.
At 17, he joins the Navy, and somehow, you know, he was on the USS Enterprise, and he'd hit the beach with the Marines. He was a corpsman. Somehow he got into that. And he wanted to be a veterinarian. He thought, well, I'll become a corpsman as a medic. That'll be my shortcut with the Navy to becoming more medicinally inclined. And of course, he got all the training, but his job, when he was not hitting the beach as a corpsman, was driving the forklift. Because here, you know, we were just talking about the giant ant farm that is society.
Right.
An aircraft carrier is kind of like that.
Right.
Everybody, there's the workers and you know, doing stuff. So he was loading bombs. And one day, you know, think about, you know, 9/11. Those guys were kamikaze pilots. And this is what they dealt with. One day he was loading bombs onto aircraft on the USS Enterprise, and a very famous Japanese fighter pilot, Tomi Zai, right, the Wild Wind, decides he's going to take out the Enterprise, because the Enterprise was not there at Pearl Harbor, right, out of maneuvers, and thank God, they call her the galloping ghost of the Wahoo Coast, because every time it turned around, the Enterprise was here again, the Big E's back. And kept the Japanese at bay during those early times of World War II, with a big panic here on the West Coast, where your parents and my parents grew up, and let's just give our parents a hand for getting to California before everybody else did, and ruined it.
Right.
Now, half you people in LA leave. There's room for you in Montana, in Wyoming. Go away. But, you know, he was in the Navy. He lied about his age. He quit. He got out of high school early, lied about his age, joined the Navy, became a medic. He's loading bombs. Tomi Zai, kamikaze pilot. And when you're a kamikaze pilot, the whole plane is the weapon,
oh, yeah,
the fuel, the
yeah,
bombs. You're going to hit the center deck. Well, hit the center deck. My dad and his buddies were able to scuttle the whole thing, put out the fire, disengage the bombs, and of course they're in the center carrier deck, the elevator. That's where all the bombs are being loaded. So, you know, thanks, Dad. Saved the big E on that one.
Yeah.
But that, think about that whole kamikaze mentality. I mean, you know, for some, your highest honor would be to die like that as a kamikaze pilot. Wow. Really? Wow. I mean,
Martyrs.
one thing to serve, but another thing. So he learned, and when he got through, he spent, actually he would hit the beach with the Marines, and he got hit by mortar fire and wound up like sunburned beyond like first, second, third degree, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. He burned up in the sun after he was knocked out with a mortar fire with his, Red Cross stuff on. Spent the rest of the war in the Naval Hospital. And that's when he developed it. You know, he couldn't become a general practitioner. He wanted to learn about life through the window of death. And I showed my son his field dress kit the other day. I said, yeah, Grandpa Ralph used to bandage up the Marines with this stuff here and send them back on board the ship, you know. Hit the beach, bandage up a couple, sew them up, send them back. And to hold that, it's just all the Marines whose lives were saved through my father's hands in this field dress kit. When I first watched the movies L.A. Confidential and The Black Dahlia, and this is after my father had passed, it brought me back to that post-war 50s Hollywood that was still very magical. And watching L.A. Confidential and The Black Dahlia was one of those cases that haunted him till he died. And it's in the song. And when I wrote this song, The Coroner, in the first, you know, it's so inspiring that we would say, let's talk about this.
Oh, it's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it fascinates me. By the way, just to put another little, maybe a little hair raising on your arm, my dad was on the Enterprise.
No way!
Yes, he was. He was a machinist mate. He was below decks most of the time.
He
My
probably
dad,
hung out.
yeah, they very well could have. So, anyway, that's just an aside that, you know, blowing my mind. To me, some of the stories you mentioned, Marilyn Monroe's death. I mean, this is history, incredible history, and of course Hollywood with the entertainment industry giant, both particularly in movies, and then the record companies came there, and so it was a mecca for pop art, if you will, film and records, and to be, I mean, I want to know about Marilyn Monroe's death. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that maybe.
Well, Noguchi said in his reports there.
Who really killed her? Did she kill herself really? I'm not so sure.
And that's the speculation, is
right.
that she was intimately involved with so many people.
Yeah, like the president.
And others, and she was a wild girl in a not so wild time. I mean, Hollywood had its own boundaries, and this is back in a time when things were different back then.
Yeah.
Not as many people had cars. Cars were kind of a status symbol, and there was a lot of freedom that maybe has changed now. I mean, it used to be back in the 50s and 60s, you could fly around the country and then fly around the world, and not so much anymore in the post 9/11 world. But he started working. He was going to medical school, and also, you know, he went to mortuary college so he could become an embalmer, so that he could pursue his forensic pathology, so that he could get out of the coroner's office, so he could become a death investigator, so he could learn about life through the window of death. And some of the things that he was always very proud of was the no next of kin deaths, where he wanted to harvest the pituitary gland, because midgets, as you know, dwarfs, there's nothing we can do. Midgets, if they get the serum of enough pituitary glands, can grow to full size during puberty, and that was one of the things that he worked really, really hard on. The other thing was the sudden infant death syndrome. I mean, he went back and forth to Sacramento to get dollars to study, and he was the first person in the country, and probably in the world, to study sudden infant death because he just killed him. Another baby died, another cot death, a baby death. Sudden infant death syndrome, and you have these postpartum moms that are already upset anyway, and now the baby dies. You know, think about how much, you know, as a parent, how much work it is to bring a life into the world.
Absolutely.
And then to lose that. You know, it's difficult, but things would, as I say, we all have tough jobs, but my dad and other first responders, they come home from a day when somebody died, there was blood, there was dead bodies, there was people who lost their arms and legs, and it was gory. And now you come home and business goes on at home. Kids, how you doing? How was school today? Honey, did you get my shoes? You know, all the things you need to, you know, my dad would come home. In some of the cases in Hollywood, the postpartum mom that put the kids to bed and then killed them. The Black Dahlia, you know, that's the whole parable about the little girl in Kansas that wanted to be in movies that wound up, you know, in a dumpster. Hollywood had a very steamy, seedy underbelly. People were drawn to the glitz of Hollywood, and there was many pitfalls. My dad used to talk about of the stars, and I've noticed this too because I've met a lot of people who were big stars at one time, and then fell from grace. Athletes coming up on Super Bowl Sunday. I can remember meeting Marcus Allen. He let me try on a Super Bowl ring. There was a certain ring to it. It was really powerful. But you have athletes, you have child actors. Hollywood has many pitfalls, and there's this manic depressive element that he was aware of. That maybe Marilyn was, you know, he hit 30, and a lot of people just go, you're in the NFL, you're 30, you're done. Okay? Some of them will hang on. You're a stripper? You're a stripper? Girl, save your money. Okay? Because someday you'll be working the door. There's a lot of pitfalls to, you know, our careers, and there's a lot of money. But the depression that comes when you are a fireman who couldn't get that baby out in the baby top.
Oh, yeah.
When you were a policeman and you showed up at a domestic dispute, and there's these are tough times, Doug. You know, we've both worked hard and have enjoyed some success in our family and our friends. If you have that, you know that you've lived lovingly and to the best of your abilities and resources to have faith, family, and friends. But these are times that have questioned people's faith and their hope, and they're desperate. And this has been a really tough time for people. And with all that desperation and frustration and people giving up hope, who ends up paying the bills? Children, spouses. There's a lot of violence. I mean, you turn on the news, there's another stabbing, there's another shooting, and it's because times are hard. And at the end of the day, who are the people who clean up L.A. or Reno, Nevada? The emergency responders. And they got to go home to their families and sit down at the table, put on their family face. My dad would come home. He'd sit down at the table, and we knew it was quiet time for Dad. It's a plane crash. 17 people. He can't figure out who they are. Doesn't know.
And they didn't have DNA.
They didn't have a dental record system. He started the dental. That was one of his ideas.
Well, that's brilliant.
He set his badge down. He set his gun down. He had to carry a gun his whole life. And he'd set it down at the table, he'd grab a beer, he'd grab a rocks glass, he'd give himself some Jack Daniels, and he'd sit there and he'd just kind of like try to let it go. And it was kind of his Buddhist moment, because he would just try to empty his head. And he'd teach me, empty your head, let it go, relax, step out this right. But my mom was very smart. And I was, firstborn. I was the only one that could get close to Daddy right now. Honey, no. Everybody else, no, just give Daddy, sit here. The Black Dahlia case gave him nightmares. Marilyn Monroe, another one. Sirhan?
Oh, yeah.
My dad, if he was here now, he would say, yes, he shot a gun. No, he didn't kill him. That didn't set well. There were just so many things things you could change, things that you couldn't, and coming home at the end of the day, you'd be depressed. But my mom would say, go get Daddy's gun. Because she was smart, because so many people in law enforcement, after a hard day, they come home and they just can't get that. They were there talking that guy down, and he ended up pulling the trigger and shot his wife. They were there, that guy died, and they blamed themselves. And they pull their gun out, they just blow their brains out. They can't take that pain anymore. But my mom, she would say, go get Daddy's gun. And at 5 years old, I knew how to lock, load, put on safety. We'd go out and we'd shoot guns. My dad and his friends. And there's a problem with guns where children need to be educated about guns. Children need to know that it's forbidden, taboo. Because what do you learn when you're a kid? If you tell your kids not to do it, what are they going to do? They're going to do it. If you say, yeah, this is the gun, want to shoot it? Yeah. Boom! Okay. I remember when I was 9 years old, my dad had this .45, and he was lethal. Boy, he was good. We were out shooting, and he takes the gun, and he says, you want to shoot Dad's .45? And I was like, well, yeah. And put both hands on it. Yeah, okay. Ready? Okay, pull the trigger. Boom! I still have the dent in my forehead from the sight from my dad's .45. You want to shoot Daddy's gun? No! No, I don't!
Good lesson learned.
Yeah, you want to shoot the shotgun? Yeah! Oh, ow, my shoulder! But I would go up and I would get Daddy's gun, grab it by the butt, and Dad would rub me on the head. And, you okay, Dad? Yeah, I'm all right, buddy. All right, love you. We'll give it back to him tomorrow. Mama would get the gun and she'd give it back to him tomorrow. But maybe your dad or mom worked with the fire department, with the sheriff's department, with the highway patrol.
My brother was a fireman. Now, as the song,
The Coroner.
The Coroner.
From the new album.
From the new album. Now, Ozzy Osbourne and
Alice
Cooper and other artists like that. I know Alice.
Marilyn Manson.
Yeah. Now they come up with ghoulish, bloodthirsty, shock type of material, but the difference between them and you is that you are actually writing about your childhood. This is something that is unique to me, and that's what when I heard the song and we had talked. I never knew that your dad was a deputy coroner in L.A. I didn't know that, and I said the song was scary, spooky, any and all of those things, and it is, but you actually lived it. I mean, this is.
Well, I wanted to write a song where people would appreciate that. Okay, you have a tough job too. But there's people that do the jobs that you don't want to do. And God bless them. They do a good job and they put in long hours. And those people, those first responders, a song about them. And if I can save one person's life with that song, Dad, people need to understand that these people would come home from a day's work and somebody died. And these are people who really impressed me as my heroes.
And not only is there that mental anguish, but you know, they put their life on the line. They could be blown away on any time the whistle blows, and out they go, or the siren sounds. I mean, any day.
Oh, it was so many times. It's like we'd be getting ready to go fishing or do something. The phone would ring. Dad's on call. Oh crap! Yeah, Dad's got it going. And I remember that, you know, a lot of times Mom would hold dinner, and then, oh, your father's going to be late. And this is the late 60s, early 70s. We didn't have cell phones. My dad, in his county car with the amber lights, he had his two-way radio, his Motorola. He'd get the call coming into work. Yeah, I've got to get out here to Azusa. A plane crashed in the San Gabriel Mountains. I got to do this. I got to do that. I remember one time, you know, when the phone rang in our house, it was either, you know, like Jerry Dunphy or Tom Brokaw. And well, one time, you know, we didn't answer the phone as kids, and if we did, you better be very polite. We were sitting around playing chess, like we played chess here at your house. And the phone rings, and my dad's like, "Who's Janis Joplin?" "She's a singer. What'd she sing?" "Well, you know, sing some." You know, and I sang a couple of Janis Joplin songs, and he goes, "She's dead. Yeah, I'll be in a minute." You know, and he says, "Yeah, she got a hot pop that was full of rat poison, she's dead." You get those phone calls. One time we're all playing Monopoly. He gets this phone call. It's Vincent Bugliosi. And so we get the Tate LaBianca murders, the Manson family murders. Nobody knows what's going on. There's this Beatles thing, these clues. It's scary, it's eerie. Everybody's scared to death. He gets a phone call from Vincent Bugliosi. He says, "Ralph, there's something going on with this Beatles connection. This White Album, you know, we need to get one of those and check that out. There's some of these songs the song lyrics we're finding them at at the murders." He says, "Gwen?" That's not my real name's Glenn. Max volume I came up with because it's on your radio.
And your guitar in.
Yeah. And he says, "You got the White Album and the Beatles?" I go, "Yeah." And he took it to work. It didn't come back for years, and I still have it in the evidence bag. Because they were using it to research what was going on with Charlie.
Like to decode.
Yeah, what's going on? And of course, you know, Charlie's been locked up a long time, but this was a scary time. And my dad, the morgue was full of dead guitar players and little girls from Kansas, and I was grounded all the time. If it wasn't for my Creedence songbook, you know, and I just would keep learning these songs because, you know, I was too afraid to dance with girls. Although I would later. I would find out that dancing wasn't too bad, but to be the guy up there playing music was more comfortable for me because then I could meet girls and they would be somebody.
Well, that's why I'm not a very good dancer, because I was the guy playing drums at all the sock hops at school, and yeah, I know the deal. They said, "Well, yeah." My wife tells me, "You got rhythm. Why can't you dance?" Well, I just sort of shuffle around, you know. I don't know, because I'd rather play drums. You know, that's the way I dance. But that's another story.
One night, my dad was not coming home for dinner. My mom says, kids, Daddy's going to be on the news. Come on." And this is, once again, early 70s. It's not like, you know, you can DVR it or have I don't even need the word, like, VHS record. I mean, it's like, gather around the TV, and we only had a color TV for a little while. I mean, we were not poor, but, you know, we weren't rich, and, you know, we appreciated what things. And I remember my dad was like, I'd say, "Dad, man, I want to buy this Creedence songbook at $12. I said, "Well, go out and make some money." And on one hand, it was kind of like, "Dad, can't you just," you know, on one hand, it was like, "Can't you just do it, Dad?" No, on the other hand, it was like, if I make money, I can buy whatever I want. It was kind of empowering, but, you know, I bought the Creedence songbook, but, you know, this is back at a time when the TV, you watched it when it was on. And kids, come here, Daddy's going to be on the news. We'd all sit around and wait. And all of a sudden Jerry Dunphy cuts down. And we're going down the Symbionese Liberation Army shootouts going on in South Central East LA. We have reporters on the scene. And here's my dad with all the corner meat wagons. And there's this gunfire going on, and they're covering it live, and all the news people are asking him questions. I see the coroner's office. Are we expecting some casualties? Yes, there'll be some casualties. And he's talking to the people live on camera when somebody kicks out a window and start shooting over towards all the news cameras and everything because they see the lights and everything. Dad, live on TV, pulls out the 45, boom! Goes back mid-sentence, finishes. You know, of course, you know, things were taken care of now.
Right.
But, you know, he said, the next day in the LA Times, the thing was like, Cindy Lee's Liberation Shootout. Then there was like a sidebar, coroner arrives for shootout. You know, and it was like, you got to think of the 60s, and you know this, you're Doug, Cosmo, Clifford of Creedence Clearwater Revival, Creedence Clearwater Revisited. You have kept the music going. A good song is a good song is a good song, eternally. The 1960s were the Civil War of the 20th century.
I know.
Things changed.
Yeah, many big social changes.
We fought for the flowers.